Welcome, ghouls, to today's episode of Mental Health is Horrifying. I'm your horror Barbie host of Darkness, Candace Green, psychotherapist and all-around spooky bitch, podcasting from my bat-filled cave in Toronto, Canada. I think we can all agree that we spend a lot of time online these days, right? Sort of like right now. And we kind of have these personas online that, let's be honest, can often be quite different than who we are in our real lives with real people who really know us. But what would it be like to imagine a world where all our online personas, all of our online avatars and egos, whose main source of sustenance are likes and follows, broke free from our control and began to run wild and do exactly as they please? What would they do to survive or thrive? Pretty terrifying, huh? On today's episode, we're going to imagine that world through the lens of 2018 tech horror Cam. The story of how Alice, a cam girl's identity is stolen or possessed or anthropomorphized or something, and begins taking on a terrifying life of her own. I really love this movie. It's beautifully shot and is an obvious commentary on the nature of camming and is based on Isa Mazzei's own experiences as a cam girl. But what I'm most interested in is how this movie reflects the increasingly ego-focused nature of our society and what happens when the ego is not in balance with the rest of the archetypal self. Spoiler alert, it's bad. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's talk about Cam and its portrayal of the ego run amok. Amok, amok, amok!
I love this song.
And here I am by myself. Me and my inferiority contest. I'm not winning, but I'm having a very good time. The good time girl. When I said it out loud, it didn't sound as good. I couldn't be as proud of my original thought. I'm not trying to whisper what should take back, but I can't imagine being out of control. Knocked off the top, my head in line when I'm all alone, but waiting my phone won't be thrown when I'm doing just fine.
Is this what you want? I slit my throat last night.
Holy shit.
What are you looking at? Nothing.
She's texting a boy.
Alice. I'm gonna tell her. My rank needs to be better. I'm like this close to breaking top 50. I can taste it.
Customer support, how can I help you?
Hi, I'm locked out of my account, and I think you guys are just replaying an old show or something.
I don't think that's possible. We can't do that.
Okay, well, does it say my channel's live?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, we have a new friend.
That person is not me.
She looks exactly like you.
Weird.
Who is she?
Unexpected things happen to test us. It isn't safe.
What is it?
I've watched enough to guess who it'll choose. But I don't know what it is.
You stole my face, and now I'm going to get it back.
You stole my face, and now I'm going to get it back. Come on, let's keep playing. Come on, let's keep playing. Let's have some fun. Who is she?
Alice Ackerman works as a cam girl on a website called Free Girls Live under the name Lola_Lola, and Alice is committed to breaking the top 50 rank on Free Girls Live and has started performing more extra in terms of her stunts and antics on her platform in order to get viewers and push her rank up. So during one live stream, Alice stages a stunt where she slits her own throat and blood gushes everywhere and it's super gross and it looks so real, but then surprise, she's fine, and this greatly increases her rank. Alice has two loyal viewers, Barney and Arnold, also known as Tinker, whom she regularly engages in private video calls with. She soon learns that Barney will be in her area next week and agrees to meet up for a date. Alice also notices Tinker in a local store and looks surprised and uncomfortable, not realizing that he has moved near to her. In an attempt to break the top 50, Alice continues to push her own boundaries with what she feels comfortable doing on her platform. Choosing to normally stick to pretty innocent type content on her platform, like eating a steak dinner in a cute outfit or doing a workout in another cute outfit, Alice begins resorting to more and more extreme stunts, like teaming up with fellow cam girl Fox to do a live show from the Cam Girl Clubhouse while riding the Vibatron, which is like a really intense vibrator, while Fox controls its intensity level. Ouch. The show is a huge success though, and Alice brings her rank up to 47. But we quickly find out how fickle these rankings are, and with rival cam girl Princess, who has a strict no nude policy, promising to get naked if Lola/Alice rank drops to 60, and as such, Lola/Alice drops out of the top 50. One morning, Alice finds that she cannot access her Free Girls Live account, but that her channel is actually live and currently streaming somehow. Lola is still active and currently streaming. Curious, she logs into a spare account to watch the stream to find that the channel has been taken over by someone with her exact appearance and mannerisms. Even the studio is an exact replica of Alice's studio in her home. Alice contacts the site customer service, believing that they are replaying one of her old shows, but they assure her that this is not possible and is not something that they do. When Alice messages the channel, the Lola on screen responds to her and addresses her directly, proving that the stream is in fact live. Alice confides in her fellow cam girls about the situation and accuses rival cam girl Princess X of being responsible, but Princess swears her innocence. Alice continues to try and access her Free Girls Live account, as well as create a new one, but all her attempts fail. At her brother Jordan's birthday party, a fight breaks out between him and his friends after they happen across one of Alice's streams and ridicule her, which causes her mother to inadvertently find out what Alice does for a living, which she had been hiding from her. A humiliated Alice panics and leaves. That night, the fake Lola hosts a show in which she stages her own suicide by shooting herself in the mouth. Upon seeing this, Alice understandably loses it, and she contacts the police, who are completely unhelpful and judgmental, and just ask her gross questions about her work and leer at her. Blech. When the fake Lola announces an upcoming joint show with Baby Girl, Alice unsuccessfully attempts to get in contact with Baby, though she grows suspicious when Baby uses the same phrases in her stream that the fake Lola did. Weird. During her date with Barney, Alice cleverly manages to get him to reveal Baby's hometown. She excuses herself to the bathroom to further investigate on her phone, but Lola, the fake Lola, goes live right at that moment. Alice uses the information provided by Barney to find Baby's real name, which is Hannah Darren, and discovers that the real Hannah passed away in a car crash 6 months prior. How can that be possible if she is online streaming, like right now, though? Just like the fake Lola, what is going on? She searches for other cam girls that she assumes to be doppelgangers and notices that each of the fake girls have Tinker as their top friend. She seeks him out at a motel he mentioned he was staying at earlier, tearfully begging for his help. He offers to let her stay for the night at his motel. Alice wakes up in the middle of the night to find Tinker in the bathroom, masturbating while in a private cam session with the fake Lola. An enraged Alice demands answers from him, who reveals that he knows about the replicas, but insists that he is not behind them. Alice then talks to the fake Lola from Tinker's computer, who appears to be oblivious to the fact that they are identical. She angrily leaves, ignoring Tinker's pleas with her to stay. Alice goes home and sets up her vanity mirror, camera, and television in a position that creates an illusion showing multiple angles of her. She joins a private cam session with the fake Lola, who once again does not recognize her, and suggests that they go live together. The fake Lola enthusiastically agrees, and viewers chalk up the two Lolas to special effects. Alice challenges Lola to a game. They must imitate each other. Whoever the viewers think does the best wins. If Alice wins, she gets to ask anything of Lola. So they start by doing off little things. Who blows a kiss better? Who does this dance better? But then, things escalate real quick. Alice dramatically smashes her own face into her desk, breaking her nose and subsequently that of the fake Lola, who stole her face anyway, so now she has broken hers. Theirs. Whatever. The online voters declare the real Lola to be the winner of this weird game, and as the prize, fake Lola has to give her the password to her account. She does this and quickly deletes the entire account just as fake Lola's account reaches the #1 rank. Sometime later, Alice's mother does her makeup for her in preparation for an upcoming live stream. Her mother asks Alice what she will do if the same thing happens again, to which Alice responds that she will simply continue to recreate her account. It is revealed that Alice has gotten a fake ID containing the name Emily Ramsey. She creates a new account on Free Girls Live under the name EveBot. The movie ends just as Eve begins her first ever live stream. Cam is a 2018 psychological/tech horror filmed and directed by David Goldhaber and written by Isa Mazzei, with the writing largely inspired by Mazzei's own work as a cam girl. And for those who aren't familiar, camming is a type of work where a performer performs and streams via an online medium adult content including modeling, play acting, or acts of a sexual nature for a paying audience of one or many. It stars Madeline Brewer, Patch Dara, Melora Walters, Devin Druid, and Michael Dempsey. It is a co-production between Divide and Conquer, Blumhouse, Big Up, and Gunpowder and Sky. Much of the story was drawn from Mazzei's own experiences as a cam girl. The part in the story where Lola has her image stolen came from Mazzei's own experience of camming videos pirated and reposted without crediting her. Alice's interactions with the police officers are also taken from Mazzei's and other sex workers' experiences of being dismissed and hit on when reaching out for help. According to Mazzei, the question one of the police officers asks her, "What's the weirdest thing you've ever had to do?" was actually asked of her by several Hollywood executives in meetings once they learned that she had previously worked as a cam model. This is, of course, a very important lens with which to view the movie through. That is, the commentary that is being made about the experiences of online sex workers having their images pirated and reposted, the lack of safety and regard provided by law enforcement and powers that be, the precarity of the gig economy, and of course, the whole Black Mirror-ness of it all when we think about AI's very real ability to deepfake, copy, and reproduce likenesses online in perpetuity and forever. And if that's the world that we live in, one where only the most industrious, the ones who hustle and break themselves at the altar of the machine the most survive, of course it makes sense that we find ourselves in a place where we create personas that are willing to do exactly that for us. There are clear references and inspirations drawn from horror directing royalty Dario Argento with the use of color and light that washes over entire scenes to denote emotion throughout the film. And it's interesting to notice how Argento's use of color from the 70s and 80s intersects very well with the sort of online Tumblr aesthetic of the 2000s and a lot of the more current tech horror social media films like Cam that have become more prevalent within the genre, like Host, which I did my last episode on, Sissy, or Influencer. How would you feel if one day you tried to log in to your online social media accounts only to discover that they were locked and your online persona had taken on a life of her own? What would you be most worried about? What would she do? How would she threaten you? I mean, the real you, the one that lives in 3D and not just the online persona that you have created for yourself. Perhaps she would stop at nothing to get likes and follows, endorsements, views and shares, and to achieve this, she would transgress your boundaries, use people, use you, because she is so hungry for more of what she wants. Know me, love me, exalt me. Would this online persona even recognize you? You, her creator? Or would you become meaningless? Would she have become the perfect image of what everyone wants her to be? And would she be able to tell the difference between what they want and what she wants? Would it be like how Lola's doppelganger cannot even recognize Alice staring back at her, having become the alien other, and the persona has become Narcissus, so enraptured by his own image that he drowned in it? The ego, or the conscious realm, is all about how you see yourself and understand yourself in relation to the world. It's who we present ourselves as in society, and within this, we find the persona. This is the version of ourselves that we share with the world, and it's the one who knows how to follow the rules that society has laid out. The persona develops as a social mask to contain all of the primitive urges, impulses, and emotions that are not considered socially acceptable. The primary goal of the ego is to make one's presence known and admired. This in itself, like most things, has a light and a shadow side. Of course, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be known and admired. This is how we make our way through the world, relate to one another, and create meaning. However, the shadow side to this is one that achieves the desire for being known and admired through what psychologist Irvin Yalom refers to as false meaning, referring to myths without any healing or sustaining power. This type of meaning is typically fleeting. And like, no shade here, right? At times, false meanings may help people cope and survive, but ultimately, false meanings have no power to address or transcend the deeper, more existential concerns of the human condition. Examples of false meaning include money, power, or status. This conscious realm, the one that we tend to live in every day, makes up only a very small fraction of what we experience as humans, with the unconscious holding even deeper layers of meaning and parts of self. Our unconscious realm is vast, and it is constantly experiencing and storing things within its layers. Whereas the collective unconscious refers to universal symbols and knowledge that represent common human experiences and emotions, things like death is scary and rainbows are happy. The personal unconscious is just that, specific to the experiences of the individual. It contains a very large variety of emotions and memories that the person has rejected or repressed. When we become too ego-focused or too much in service to the ego, we tend towards the familiar, and we don't want to do the work, so to speak, of tending to our messy and mysterious humanity, and we shy away from matters of the unconscious. There are numerous ways we see the elevation of the ego in Cam. Firstly is one of Lola's biggest fans, Tinker. He is completely obsessed with the idea of her, this online persona that she has created, and he even takes the opportunity to participate in that persona when he helps her to stage the stunt where she slits her own throat live on her channel. But when Tinker and Lola actually meet in person for the first time, he is awkward and sweaty, and he doesn't really know what to do or how to relate to this full, real woman standing in front of him. Alice/Lola, it's even confusing for me to know how to refer to this doppelganger girl. But anyways, her obsession with her own ego is really shown in her desire to break the top 50. Achieving this rank will confer a few things to her ego: status among her peers in a general sense, but also more specifically, status above her nemesis princess. This rank, presumably, will also make her more money, which is certainly something that is important to her as a single gal trying to make it out here in the world. And again, nothing wrong with wanting to make money and live a comfortable life. Alice/Lola enjoys being able to shop online for items for her home and buy nice gifts for her brother on his birthday. But there's all a cost to these things, and not just monetary. On a more sensitive sort of note, Lola's desire to reach the top 50 is embedded in her desire to be good enough. When her mother finds out about her work, she's of course a bit sheepish and shy about it, and she confesses to her that she didn't want to show it to her or for her to know about this until she had reached the top 50, until she felt she was good enough. I would argue that societally, we live entirely too much in our egos. And to a certain extent, this makes sense, right? The ego can be looked at as a sort of command center for the psyche, carrying out how we relate to the world on a day-to-day level, making selections, choices, and judgments. And at the forefront of that being the persona, and the persona is putting forth who we want to be known as in the world that we're a part of. These are all necessary and relevant functions of the ego. However, you throw social media in there and technology and human disconnection and world-class levels of human avoidance that we all kind of are really good at, and we are left with a society that is so ego-focused and driven that the rest of the psyche, parts like our archetypes, our shadow, and the unification of the self, well, they're just kind of sidelined. What did Carl Jung say about ignoring the unconscious? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. We need healthy, balanced, well-integrated egos, or else we cannot be whole. This is why Lola begins to spiral. Once Alice/Lola realizes that a doppelganger of her persona has been created and is running amok online, the real her, let's definitively call this one Alice, realizes she cannot exist as a whole self without this important part of her. She cannot live without her ego. None of us can. She makes numerous attempts to try to reclaim it too, by reaching out for help, by trying to bargain with it online, by breaking the barriers between her online and offline selves and revealing her true identity to her family. And ultimately, when none of that works, Alice resorts to annihilation, saying, "You stole my face, now I'm going to get it back," and violently smashes her face, resulting in the smashing of the ego doppelganger's face as a way to blot out the self and start over again with a new persona, Eve, a name chosen in reference to the first woman, the beginning. With full control of this new persona, Alice can begin rebuilding her sense of self in relation to the world and in time to herself. Okay, so there's this idea of transcendence, or a transcendent function, which is where the self is achieved through the unification of the conscious and the personal unconscious. It is a process and a method at the same time. The production of unconscious materials of the psychic terrain are referred to as a spontaneous process. These are things like our dreams or daydreams, spontaneous emotions or facial expressions or reflexive responses, whereas the conscious realization is a method. The function is called transcendent because it facilitates the transition from one psychic condition to another by means of the mutual confrontation of opposites. The cooperation of conscious reasoning with the data of the unconscious is called a transcendent function. This function progressively unites the opposites. Psychotherapy is an example of a transcendent function that makes use of the method to heal dissociations between the conscious and unconscious self. This is why your therapist will often ask you annoying questions like, "How did that make you feel?" No, "How did that really make you feel?" Because the psychotherapeutic realm is one that seeks to penetrate through the egoic and protective self that may be like, "Yeah, I'm totally fine, like whatever, like it's no big deal," and get to the heart of what's really going on, which often lays deep in the personal, sub, or unconscious. In my therapy practice, I love to work with tarot cards as a way to enable a transcendent function. And I always tell people, I don't care and it doesn't matter if you know the meanings of the tarot cards. It's more important what you are seeing in the cards when they come up in the session and tapping into that unconscious stuff, not thinking about it with a conscious way, pulling out the book of meanings saying, "Oh, what does this pentacle mean?" or this sword or whatever, and instead just focusing on what emotion, feeling, association, or memory is that card evoking from your unconscious. It's such a great way to bridge that conscious and unconscious layer in a therapy session and has tremendous psychotherapeutic benefit. Dream work is another example of a transcendent function because while dreams themselves are spontaneous processes of the unconscious, the work with and the being with the dream and using all the conscious materials of the mind is what bridges the space between and creates a meaning of the self. And we make sense of dreams in a collective and personal way. We may look to universal symbols or understandings to give something context, and then we move it into the personal, as dream elements are often symbols of one's own emotions. Stories, myths, and fairy tales are also wonderful examples of transcendent functions, and really interesting ones too, because in addition to working with materials from the personal unconscious, they include another layer of the human psyche, which is the collective unconscious, as they are processed through the culture and time in which they are created. The characters contained within are universal and archetypal figures we all carry within us and have encountered, like the hero, the innocent, the magician, or the outlaw. Just look at horror movies, for example. They are reflective of the collective experience of the time in which they were created, sort of like Cam. This is a 2018 movie that is part of a canon of tech horror that is reflective of our terminally online, social media obsessed culture that filmmakers quite naturally were able to find the horror in. Stories, myths, and fairy tales are spontaneous and dynamic processes of the psyche and serve as clues as to what is going on in the collective as well as within the personal. Then they get processed through the culture and pass through the screens of consciousness, just like dream work. In this sense, it can be interesting to consider stories, myths, and fairy tales as collective dreams. We dream and we create stories because our psyche is always trying to find balance between the conscious and the unconscious, the ego and the shadow. This is an act of emotional compensation. So when this function is removed, and all we are left with is the ego, the self, represented by Alice in this film, panics and flips all the way out and tries to resolve this disconnect by any means necessary, including smashing her beautiful face into a desk. Not great. Not great. Final girls, I'd like to take you on a transcendent journey into your psyche through, you guessed it, horror movies. More specifically, horror movie monsters and villains. Join me on a very special dark moon/solar eclipse this April 8th for the Final Girls Club, where we'll be exploring how monsters show us our guts. Informed by Jungian exploration of myths and fairy tales as portraits of psychic terrain, in this workshop, we will explore how we project our unconscious shadows onto our favorite horror monsters and villains, and imagine the creation of our own monsters as an act of emotional catharsis and reclamation of self. Early bird Final Girl rate is in effect until March 1st. Register by visiting manymoonstherapy.com/finalgirlsclub. We all live in our egos. We cannot access the full unconscious reality of who we are, of our infinite potential, and not just for the good or the great, but for horror and darkness, lest we be crushed under the largeness of it. We cannot exist in our truth and vulnerability at all times, so we create personas to protect us so we can function and get by. We all do it. I'm doing it right now. I'm showing you who I want you to see. You don't really know me. Not really. Who really knows you? Do you know you? And that, my ghouls, is the story of Cam. Not sure about you, but I'm checking all my accounts to make sure I have two-factor authentication turned on, right? Or maybe we just all need to throw our phones down a well and talk to a graveyard instead. Who's with me? Thank you for journeying into the depths with me, and I hope to find you in the darkness again soon. Visit my website, manymoonstherapy.com, to register for the April edition of the Final Girls Club, How Monsters Show Us Our Guts, where we will explore how we project our unconscious shadows onto our favorite monsters and villains and make up our own monsters. You can follow me on Instagram at manymoonstherapy, and you can also learn more about me and my services through my website, manymoonstherapy.com. Or you can also howl at the moon and I will hear your call. Bright blessings.